we started this whole film, this whole idea, out of a belief and a desire to understand what was going on beyond our borders. Too often there's this assumption, I think, that everything's good in the world because everything's good in America. We're very lucky. But to assume that because things are good here, that they're good in other parts of the world is just really dangerous.
British academia is a wondrous thing. You go to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and the only universities that intimidate arrogant Harvardians, Yaleys, and Princetonians are Oxford and Cambridge. There's a magic to the British university. And it's a wondrous thing because not only does it have a reputation, but it has been the fountain of so much wisdom, the fountain of so much good learning, the fountain of so much good scholarship. To see that fountain poisoned, to see those holy places to the academic despoiled by a hatred for Israel is truly painful.
6 million Jews went into Hitler's gas chambers like lambs for slaughter.
You think that
yes
they
or
all
no?
queued up to go in there? And
well, that's what they did.
March 2011, the annual Israel Apartheid Week is taking place in Britain. It did become almost a microcosmos of the anti-Israel campaign, and you could really see the players. So there were 4 of us who were defending, as usual, we were defending our case, saying, look, we're not apartheid state. There was a mob who was shouting at us angrily, why did you come here? Why did you come to provoke us?
Intimidating us. Why are you here? Why are you here to begin with? Why are you here to begin with?
The guy was saying things about the Holocaust, that Jews were the biggest cowards in history, stood there like animals, naked, with no dignity, jumping into the gas chambers, and he kept repeating about the cowardice of the Jews. In thinking that this must be illegal, I remember thinking that. I said, I got the camera out and said, do you mind me recording? He said, no, everyone should see this.
Do you want to be photographed? Do you want to be photographed? Do you want to be photographed? I'd have got nothing to hide.
Next thing I knew, there was a scuffle, and Dean was apparently bitten in the cheek, in his left cheek, by another man.
You've got no don't photograph.
The next thing I remember was him biting my face. My cheek was clamped in his face and he was growling. I distinctly remember him like going and I felt his breath on my cheek and down my face, and it felt like he was trying to bite towards my ear. And on the subsequent photograph you could see it looked like 3 bites.
The mob that surrounded us started accusing us of coming there, of actually just attending this thing. I mean, you knew what you were looking for, right? You provoked. Why did you even bother to come? You knew what you were looking for trouble.
It looks like they took the attitude, just charge them both. You know, it would be a lot simpler, and that was my feeling at the time. Obviously shocking because I was the victim. I was standing there. I was recording someone who gave me permission to record, and I was attacked.
I was quite sure that the biter would go to jail because we had all the evidence, we had part of the film that shows what happened. My supporter went to hospital. We were credible witnesses according to the judge, but he was nevertheless acquitted because it wasn't proven beyond reasonable doubt that the biting was not an act of self-defense. What do you feel after that? I mean, I wanted to take the first plane to Israel. It's very, very difficult to explain, you know, what brings a person to make this decision.
Again and again, over the last 10 years, 12 years, I've been called Giltroy neoconservative. And I say, what do you know about me? You know that I'm pro-Israel and anti-terror. That makes me a neoconservative? That makes me a liberal. If you knew the liberalism that I know, and as an American historian, I know about the liberalism of Thomas Jefferson and John Stuart Mill, I know about the liberalism of Betty Friedan and John Kennedy, the liberalism of Martin Luther King, I could go on and on, I know my liberals. Those people were pro-Israel and anti-terror. Jefferson wasn't alive, but he would have been. They were pro-free speech. They were pro the core values of this project.
There are some deep undercurrents as to why Israel is of such interest to the West in general, to the British in particular. The British have their own historic association with the country and possibly guilt feelings as to the manner in which they administered the mandate before 1948 and the manner in which they left and the conditions which they left and the, if you like, the unfulfilled promise that they feel that they may owe to the Palestinians.
I remember the initial discussions we had, the initial thought that we had about this project was, what is going on over there? What's going on beyond our borders? Because what is going on over there doesn't always stay there. The entire world's intermingled, so we wanted to understand how everything applied to each other.
You know, we really set out to craft a story. We could have just done an expose, a shot after shot of London and Europe, show people how bad it's really gotten in the last few years. But that's not a movie. That's not what we wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also important to remember that we're not experts, we're not professional filmmakers, we're students on American college campuses, and we wanted to tell this story.
I went through the second Intifada when I was 13. The house is near an important place for the Israelis, so they had to build a military camp behind our house, and we've been having clashes every night in that area and for years. I reached a point that I will start thinking of myself, what's really going on? What's the purpose of not ruling this area and not taking control over it? And why is everything is like a mess? They're fighting over Palestine, and they've never had a country called Palestine. And they can now take it, but they're not going to sit and negotiate. They only need to negotiate on solving the problem and take control over the West Bank and Gaza. But they're not doing it because they're divided, they're corrupt, and they just don't care. My journey to England was really hard. I thought that I'll have a break, but I found out that here is getting really worse. Many things are changing, and it's really dangerous. It's much easier for a Muslim to get a political asylum in here than a Christian.
Why do you think that is?
Because they don't want to upset them. Loads of money from English taxes have been sent to, especially our West Bank region. They're on their own hands. They're giving them to the people who might be one day killing them.
I apologise that women had to witness this today, but in our land, our women have to see the same. You people will never be safe. Remove your governments, they don't care about you.
One of the things that's so special about Christy is her journey. I mean, her family's business was destroyed by the security fence. Her uncle was shot and killed by the IDF. And then she met this guy named Howard from London. She decided to move and take her entire life from Palestine to London with this man. The fact that she doesn't hate Israel is shocking.
Supporting Palestine is the cool thing to do. I sat down with one guy in a politics lecture, and he had a Palestine flag badge on his rucksack. And I got talking, and I was like, oh right, why do you support Palestine? That's really interesting. And after speaking for about 10 minutes, he actually admitted he didn't even know where Palestine was, but it was cool to have the badge because it was a cool liberal thing to do, and everyone thought that it was, you know, great.
From giving out leaflets to going to these Our Quds Day protests they had in London, chanting death to Israel, and really kind of trying to vilify Israel at every opportunity. I would definitely say that I was kind of on that path where going to like a training camp or something was definitely kind of on the horizon.
Training camp?
Like a jihadist training camp. I saw Alan Dershowitz's book, The Case for Israel, at a bookshop. It was the first time that I was exposed to a lot of facts which I'd never ever, never even looked at. So it's really simple facts like the fact that a Palestinian state has never existed. And people may go, oh, that's anti-Arab. It's not anti anything, it's just simply a fact. prior to 1948, a Palestinian state never existed. But for me, it was already fact that it has existed. It's always existed. These European Jews came and, you know, colonized the region, so to speak. So that started to basically create doubt in my own mind. And then you start researching, you start looking into other aspects of it, and then eventually I visited Israel. One of the biggest things that I saw in Israel on my first visit, that there wasn't this generalization. This, all Muslims are bad. That is something I didn't encounter on my last visit, my first visit or my last visit. I felt very safe as a Muslim in Israel. And I would definitely say that there are times in Israel I felt safer being a Muslim than I have in many parts of the UK. I don't know why that is, maybe because Israel is such a melting pot and such a mix, and strangely enough people aren't on this constant paranoia. People just ignore you to a point. Unfortunately, Israel's not had the best interaction with the Muslim world, you know, from wars to terrorism, but it's not allowed it to shape its national identity on how it views Muslims. So yeah, it is frustrating, but again, it's that same battle of this hate isn't going to get anybody anywhere.
Whatever is going on between Israel and the Palestinians is a national conflict, not a racial conflict. And that A word, the R word, apartheid, racism, tries to racialize something which is a national conflict between two peoples who were trying to figure out how to love the same land and live lives with national self-determination.
I've been to South Africa 5 times on behalf of my work. And I can tell you, as a young woman who's a minority anyway, you slice me, I'm Jewish, I'm Hispanic, I grew up in a housing project, it was shocking to me. Being in Johannesburg was shocking because you see the after effect of apartheid. When I go to teach younger students about Israel, you can't speak to them in terms of anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, the state of Israel. You have to speak to people on their level. And I play a game when I teach young students, teenagers. I take a piece of red tape and I draw it across the floor and I say, you know, I'm going to show you a few different posters, images. I'm going to repeat a few quotes with you. And if you think this is crossing the line of a legitimate criticism against Israel or against the Jewish people into hate speech or anti-Semitism, I want you to cross that line. And we did this with the comparison of Israel to Nazi Germany, the Holocaust, etc. And finally we got to the big issue in South Africa, in Durban. And 95% of the students were not Jewish in this classroom. And I held up an image comparing Israel to apartheid South Africa. And one young woman crossed the line. And she was a young black South African woman. And I remember she looked back at her classmates and she said, "Why haven't you crossed the line?" And they said, "Well, from what we understand, we think maybe some of the policies in Israel are like apartheid South Africa." And she said, "Who are you to say that apartheid was not my Holocaust?" Because it was.
It would be wrong to say that this issue is somehow destroying England, destroying Europe. But it would also be wrong to not acknowledge it. And we need to realize that it is a problem and it's getting worse. And just like anything, you know, this has the potential to really mess things up.
There is a song in Hebrew that says, "London is not waiting for me." But I hope it is waiting, and I hope it does have a little bit of patience, because we're here to make a difference. I hope so.
Shalom, אני נוסעת, אני לא רוצה שתלוו אותי הלאה. לא שיש לי אשליות בקשר ללונדון, לונדון לא מחכה לי, גם שם אהיה לבד, גם שם אהיה לבד. שלום, אני נוסעת, אני לא רוצה שתלוו אותי הלאה. לא שיש לי אשליות בקשר ללונדון, לונדון לא מחכה לי, גם שם